All right, the first video showed you guys how to set up your paper. So once you have everything set up, you don't need to put the word labels on, obviously. Then you're ready to start shading. So you guys are going to use this as your guide. And this is going to help you make sure that you get all of the values correct and make sure that you spread it out. Because a lot of times what happens is we'll get a scale with maybe this right here where there's not a lot of value change. And so I want to make sure that you guys are checking this, using this as your guide. You guys will be using a number 2 pencil, no mechanical pencils, or you guys will be using the General's layout pencil, the shading pencil. I'll just call this our shading pencil. So I'll have these available for you guys. And the reason why we use the shading pencil is it gets a lot darker than our regular pencil and it may be hard to see on the screen, but I'm not having to press extremely hard to get a dark value on there, the darkest dark value. But with this one, no matter how hard I press, because of the pigments in the pencil, it's always going to appear lighter, even though I'm pressing with the same pressure. So whether you guys want to start with your darkest dark or start with your lightest light, that's up to you. I'm just going to give you guys a couple pointers. When you're trying to do very, very light shading, it's easier if you hold the back side of your pencil rather than holding it up here. So I'm going to hold the back side of my pencil and I want to make this almost the white of the paper. So I'm just going to barely touch the surface with the side of my pencil. So you guys can see, maybe not see on the video, that I'm barely touching this to the surface and I'm still staying in all of the lines. So my next one, I can do the same technique, but I may go over it a few more times to start building a little bit of value. You guys are going to fill in the whole space. I'm just doing small sections for the video. So you want to just hold the back of it and barely touch it on the paper. When we get over to about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, we can probably switch over to the layout pencil. But what I would suggest is starting over here with a layout pencil. And when I shade, I'm going to hold it and I actually don't let my fingers move. My hand is what actually moves. So I'm using my arm, my elbow, and I'm just doing little ovals. So what it looks like is this. That way I get my pencil going in multiple directions. I'm going to stop, do tighter circles. I can do little lines, but what I want to avoid, and I'll show you guys on the demo, is showing lines in my shading. So if I have circles that are going different directions, I'm never going to have lines in there. I want you guys to be precise on your edges, slow down, and fill in the entire space. You are graded on craftsmanship. So if you're going outside the lines, you'll have points off on this activity. So this is not my darkest dark yet. I need to fill in all of the white spaces on my paper. So I'm going to continue to fill that in, going over it multiple times until I don't see the white of the paper anymore. And that's only for your darkest dark, your number 10. And I would continue filling in that space until all of the white is gone from this surface. As we get into, let's do about a 9876. Okay, so I'm going to leave this on here so you guys can see how I'm using it to match it. I can still use this layout pencil, or if you have a heavy hand, maybe switch to the number 2. But when I am doing this, I want to start lighter. It is always easier to blend and add more graphite to a surface than it is to remove it. So right now, if I were to compare those two values, and again, I'm just using little ovals. If I were to compare those two values, this one's lighter. So I'm going to build up another layer of pencil over it and continue to use good craftsmanship. And we're practicing this because when you do the sphere, you're going to need to be a little bit more intentional with your shading. So I've gone over this section about 3 times to achieve the value that I want before I can move on to the next section. So this will take some time. This is not something that you're going to finish in 5 minutes. So now these two values match. And again, I'm not filling in the whole square. I'm just doing a partial part of it. Now we're going to talk about shading this. So once you guys have mastered getting all of your 10 values down here, then you guys are going to look at shading your circle. We're going to make our shape look like a form. And when I do my little circle shading, what we want to avoid is getting the lines that look like this, because I always have kids that want to take their fingers and go back and forth instead of holding your fingers steady. So when I have my lines that go this way, then I have to switch it and go this way to try to hide them, and go this way. and go this way. So it's actually a lot more work. It may be quicker initially to fill it in. And then I'm still going to use little circles because I can still see the lines in there. So we don't want to see any pencil lines. We want it smooth. And none of this, okay? No smudging with your finger. The reason why is because your fingers have oils in them. And once I take oil onto the paper and I trap it in there, if I try to do any editing, I'm not able to erase it. So we're not going to use our fingers. If we did need to blend, we would use a blending stump or rolled up tissue, but I don't want you guys using that because I want you to learn how to blend without using any other aids. When we get into our larger drawings, I'll give those drawing aids to you guys. All right, so when I'm working with this circle, we 100% do not want to go like this, okay? And go, okay, there's a dark spot right here. All right, dark spot, it's kind of curved, and I'm going to use straight lines. We want to avoid using straight lines when we're trying to make a curved shaded surface. So I can start with my ebony pencil here, my shading pencil, and I know I have a little bit of a highlight down along the bottom, so I don't want to let my pencil go there, but there's a dark spot right here that I can start working and go all the way over. So if I know I have a dark spot right here, I can go right up to the edge, and I'm still using my little circles. If you're somebody who needs more of a guide, you can do little circles really lightly. We don't ever want to draw a shape because then we have to shade out the lines, okay? So I've given myself, and I'll darken that up for the video, I've given myself a value where I know I'm going to have my darkest dark. So I can start kind of filling that in at a curve. Still shouldn't see any lines in here. And remember, we can always darken it up, but it's a lot more difficult to lighten it up. So now I can start applying more pressure. I know this is my dark area. So there's no straight lines in here when we are shading. You'll notice if you guys have anything underneath your paper, it'll make an impression on it. Now I can start using some larger ovals. Okay, so I know that I need to have a value change right here, and it's going to be a smooth value change. So I'm just going to start lessening my pressure. And it's what I call a quick value change. So it goes from dark to medium to light very quickly. So I might even just lightly put that highlight in there first. And I'm going to zoom in on this. Refocus. So I'm going to have that highlight in there and then work my blend in. So again, this is not something that you guys are going to do in 30 seconds and be done with it. And there's going to be a lot of altering as you go. Do not blend with your fingers. Don't try to use a blending stump. But we're just working small sections and building up the graphite on that surface. So as I continue and I'm coming out towards the top right here, I know that I have that medium value change. I'm looking at more of like a 4 or a 5. So I need to start decreasing my pressure. So same thing. Now, if I get a dark patch, so I always have kids that accidentally get a little bit too much pressure on it. So let's say I accidentally get a dark patch right here. I need to work that into the surface or attempt to pull some of it up with the eraser first. And I was just tapping it when I'm erasing it. And then trying to blend that into the surface. Everything around it has to be a little bit darker. That's why you want to try to avoid that. So I'm just doing small little circles, not getting any lines in it, continuing to build up the graphite to try to mimic the same form that I have over here. Now, if you get a pencil and it's extremely sharp, whether we have our number 2 pencil or we have our shading pencil, if it's way too sharp and it's starting to make little circles where you can see the lines, you can always take a scratch paper and dull it down a little bit. Okay. Now, when I get into the really light areas, I can hold the back of my pencil because I know it's going to start to disappear into the white of the paper. So I can switch to this pencil and get some of those lines in there to create that really, really light value. And I said get lines in there, but really we don't want lines in there. You guys may not even be able to see that on the video. Now, if I need to, when I'm shading, go over this for some reason, use a cover sheet. So if your hand is ever going to go over, say, the scale, So I'm going to zoom out. When I'm shading my form, I might need to put my hand over the top, and I know that I already have my scale on there. Cover it with a cover sheet so your hand rests on the paper, so that way we're not smudging anything with our hand and you guys don't get points off when you weren't even using your finger. When you are shading your background, similar styles, we want a gradient, and then with our cast shadow, it is darker here than it is here. So if you have any questions, just let me know.